All right, thank you. Okay, Zok the Mishna, yeah? Lamed Beis Amud Aleph. So tonight, starting tonight and tomorrow and the next day, we get into the opening the packages on Yom Tov.
So we should tune out?
I'm saying opening package Yom Tov and Shabbos. I don't know, there's always coolers, there's always chumras. Yeah, okay, so in the Mishnah, Lamed Beis Amud Aleph, so ain't peichsin esaner, so you can't, peichis means to make less, and from the last Mishnah also, the peichis means the wall fell down. So here it's ain't peichsin esaner, you can't open up a ner. So Rashi says is what you do is you take, let's say, of clay, and you stick in your fist into the clay, and now you have yourself a utensil in order to put oil in and then to light it. Yes, a person is an kli, because you're making a kli on Yom Tov, so you can't do that. You're not allowed to make coals either. If you want to make yourself charcoal in order to make a barbecue with it, so you're not allowed to do that, which would mean basically, I think, lighting up wood and then putting it out. And you're not allowed to cut wicks either. Because again, that's making a kli. That's what Rashi says. You're allowed to cut it with fire. So you're not allowed to cut it with like a scissors or a knife, but you are allowed to cut the wicks by fire, which Gemara is going to say exactly what's going on there. Okay, so Zok the Gemara, Man Tana the Pchisas Ner Manahu. Who's the Tana that says that just sticking your hand into clay automatically makes it into a ner? Meaning, and that would be the consider that it's already into a kli, right? Don't you have to make it? You have to put into a fire, and to make it solid, right? You just take a clay, right? And you stick your fist in there. Now, good. So now you can light. You can use it for oil, but it's not going to be a finished kli until you put it into the oven and heat it up, right? So Rabbi Yosef Rameir, Rabbi Yosef says that it's Rameir. The Tanya kli cheres me'emasai makabel tuma. When is a kli cheres makabel tuma? Mishenigan malachta. Once its malach is done to Rameir. So he says once the malach is done, even before it's put into the oven to finish it, it's already considered. It can be makabel tuma because it's a kli. So therefore, that's the final process. So therefore, I don't know what's the final process, but that's enough to consider it a kli for tuma. So it's certainly enough to consider it a kli for Shabbos and Yom Tov, right? Rabbi Shua Now he says that Rabbi Shua says no. It's when you combine it in the not combine. That's a literal translation, but basically when you put it into the oven, the kibshan in the oven, when you put the clay into the oven, so that oven makes it connect. What I don't mean is connect, or it makes it congeal, harden, right? That's what you're saying, harden. Makes it harden, and then that's to consider the final process. Fine. So we're saying it's Rameir who says that it becomes a kli once you stick your fist in there. So who says, right? Who says it's Rameir? Bottom line is when you stick your fist in clay, it became a utensil. But here, but you're trying to make just one little candle as opposed to a big thing. What are you going to do with this little candle? So you stuck your fist in it. How much is it? What is it really right to do it? What are you going to do with it? So my answer is you could put coins in it. It becomes like a little coin holder, like a little pocket coin holder. That's what you can do with it. Yeah. So therefore, that's why it's considered a full kli. Ikadamri. The other way.
The only mushal you can find out of something that's muksa that you can't do on Yom Tov. That's the only example they could find.
I hear. He's saying like, why couldn't they? Why couldn't? I'm saying if it's a kli, it's a kli, regardless of whether it's muksa l'maisa.
Okay, but give me
it just
something
has to have that.
Put your garim in it.
So it should say, that's what I'm saying, it should say that.
Okay, you're right. You say I mean, why did it pick something muksa? Practically, I don't think it makes a difference.
Okay, fine.
Right? But But that's again okay. So Ikadam, Yomer of Yosef, Rebbe Lezer, Rebbe Tzaddik, it's Rebbe Lezer, Rebbe Tzaddik, Tatan, Ilfasin, Charonius, Tahiris, Bayal Mace. So it's an ilfis is a plate from Charonius. So that tar in the oil of mace. They don't mean, as we know, when you have any utensils that are under the same roof as a mace, they all become tummy. But these Charonius type plates, they don't become tummy. But they are tumas, but tmeas the masa hazav, but they do become tummy with carrying by the zav. Meaning a zav has a special tumah called tumas hesed, which is that anything that he carries becomes tummy. Right? Even if he doesn't touch it, as long as he can feel he's carrying, let's say he's carrying it like on 10 pillows, and then on top of it he has a utensil. So that utensil becomes tummy if it's a zav carrying it. So that type of tumah does have this, whatever this ilfas and charonius, which Gemara is going to say soon exactly what they are. After Hiras, the masses of they're not even tummy for that. They're even tar for tumas hesed for the zav carrying it. Because the malach is not done. Meaning it hasn't. That's what the main thing of this ilfas and charonius are, is that they're not complete. They're plates that are not complete. So we're saying that Rabbi Elazar bar Tzaddik is the Tana in our Mishna, who says that it's not nigmar malachta, right? Yeah, meaning even though it's not finished, it's still. I'm sorry, what am I saying here? He's saying that it's. Meaning is it malachas done here? It's not. Right, no, so that's what it is. Rashi says, right, because it's when it's carved out, whatever. When you put the fist in, that's when it becomes final. So if he's arguing by ilfasin, but that means that he holds regularly that stam sticking a fist into clay is going to make it into a clay. So according to this version, it's Rabbi Elazar bar Tzaddik. That plate, that charonius plate can be makabel something of halacha. But here in our Mishna, what are you going to use it for? Is it going to answer the kabuli bei pshiti because you can put coins in it? Yeah. So Tana Rabban, now the Gemara is going to discuss what this is. Ein poichsin es a ner. You can't make a ner. Ve'ein oisin ilfus and charonius be Yom Tov, and you're not allowed to make these charonius plates on Yom Tov. Shimon Gamliel mater beilfus and charonius. Shimon Gamliel says it's mutter with ilfus and charonius. My charonius. What are these charonius plates? So Amar Yehuda aronius. Okay. My aronius. Amar Abaya seicha klayasa. Plates from people from small towns, right? Meaning it's not the big city plates, right? When you go to the small towns, so they're not so makbid on what the plates look like. So for them, it's considered a plate. For the big city people, it's not. Right? So that's what it is. That's what that plate is. And then the Mishnah says you're not allowed to make charcoal. Pshita l'may chazi. What are you going to do with the charcoal? Right? Well, what are you going to do with it? So Tani Rabbi Chia
What's the pshita? Pshita the what?
That you can't make the pshita is that you can't make the what do you call it? My chazi.
Can't make charcoal on Yom Tov.
Why not?
Yeah, but for what reason do you have to make it?
The cook.
What?
The cook.
Yeah, but isn't making charcoal is a lengthy process? The wood has to burn slow, and then you end up with charcoal. It's not like you're making it.
So Rashi in the Mishnah says that the people. See, I said cooking. The truth be told, I was incorrect. Rashi says it's not. They don't. Charcoal is used for blacksmiths and goldsmiths, whatever, silversmiths. That's what Rashi says.
So then what? Then pshita that it's no good, you mean?
Pshita that it's no good. Pshita, it's no good.
Because it's not tzarich l'chilua.
It's not Tzarech Yom Tov. It's used by smiths, by goldsmiths, in order to.
What's the hava meaning that it should be good?
That's exactly what it's asking. Right. Pshita, it's pashut. Why would you make the coals? It's meant for people that are doing, working with gold, etc. Right.
That's what Rashi's saying. I thought Rashi was saying that it's considered a cleat to them. That's why you can't make it.
Whatever
you can't make it for
is.
chila because you'd have to make it Erev Yom Tov. But this is al kli that you can't make it. For smiths, it's considered a kli.
That's right. If it wasn't a kli, then maybe you could make it on Yom Tov. Maybe.
No, but for what?
I don't know. I don't know for what. I have no idea for what. That's not my job. I don't know for what.
No, but at best it's hechsher eichel nefesh. Even if it's for cooking, it's hechsher. Even according to Rabbi Yehuda, hechsher is also if it's efsher meir.
I understand that.
Yes, yeah. All right. See, Rashi in the Mishna says it's out kli. Rashi in the Mishna says you're not allowed to make the charcoal out kli. Here, the Gemara seems to be saying something different. Here, the Gemara says it's what do you call it? It's not. What are you gonna do with it? It's meant for. It's not even meant for eating. Right.
What's the
That's what it
pshita
seems.
then? So the pshita is
That it's no good. Pshita, it's no good. Why? What's the chiddush that it's good?
we use it.
What's the chiddush that you think it's good? What's the chiddush that you think it's good? Of course, it's no good.
Because of goldsmiths, and goldsmiths not.
Yes. Yeah.
So does it mean we can't make a barbecue on Shabbos now?
I mean,
I'm sorry, on Yom Tov?
no, so no, because there you're not making charcoal. The charcoal, you're taking charcoal that was in existence, you're just firing it up. That's not a problem.
At the time, it says in the notes over here that it wasn't at that time. It wasn't made for cooking, right? If it wasn't made for cooking, they didn't they usher it, like make it usher on Yom Tov to even like light. If it's already made, you had a supply of charcoal. Wouldn't it have been usher to like pick up and light and start a fire with it?
No, because you read the coal. This is making coals.
Just making it. Just making it.
You're making coals, and then you're going to do something, right?
If you're making coals, Shimon, if you're making coals for goldsmiths, so then the Gemara says pshita, it shouldn't be good. It's not archel nefesh.
The Mishna says that practically says it is, no? By say, hold on, I have to get.
It
It says nor can we make charcoal. Now, you're right.
Right.
It doesn't say you can't use it, but my assumption is, and I'm artist and I am, that by making
a humble amaretz, it's a humble amaretz,
yeah, something like that. Not only making it though, because making it's one thing. Not everyone makes their own charcoal, but just using it, what I would have thought off of this would have been a problem, but I guess not.
No, that's right. It's only a problem to make the coals. It's not a problem to use the coals, right?
So
Can you cook with it straight? Like, can you cook with fire?
Yeah, that's
you
what
take
Simon's
fresh pieces of
asking.
firewood and then cook on them when they turn into coal.
You mean just take firewood and then
Eventually, it turns into charcoal, and then you just cook.
Well, are you cooking on it while it turns into charcoal, or you're not?
No, you can't do. That's not how it works. That's not how you make charcoal.
You gotta let the fire die down.
No, so then l'chara you can't do that.
That's not how you make charcoal. Charcoal goes inside of a fire in like a container, and the water content gets boiled out to the point where it becomes a briquette. It becomes I forgot the word. So it's actually a process to do. You're not just throwing wood in and expecting it to come out as a piece of charcoal. That's why I was asking, because it's very, very miyuchad on how they make charcoal. So why would you be able to use it after the fact?
No, he's asking, can you make it in the first place?
well, the Mishna says you can't. The Mishna says you can't do it. So I'm asking.
Right, but he's saying if you're doing it all in one big cooking process.
If it is made, can you use it? And if they could, because at the time when they did it, they didn't use charcoal like we do. They use it for on a professional level, not like Parrots does with the next piece of meat. Do you hear what I'm saying?
I hear. Yeah, so l'chayr it's not allowed. So anyway, so Gemara says pshita l'may chazi. So Tana Reb Chia lo netzrucha ela l'mayson l'olorian l'bay b'yom. You're giving it over to the bathhouse people, right? Olorian is the people in charge of the bathhouse for that day, meaning they're heating up the hot water for that day.
If I just kept my mouth shut for 2 more seconds, I would have.
Yeah, I think. No, but we go into Simon. The Gemara looked that up too. Is that day? Is it mutter? Since when do we allow heating up water on the bath? Used to be we allowed it, but not anymore. So to sweat, you're allowed to. If we remember the Gemara from Shabbos, originally they asked going in the bathhouse, but to heat up the bathhouse in order to sweat, they allowed it. And then they even took that away. Gezeria. And it's talking about before the gezeria, right? So Hanami, hold on. Here too, it's talking about where they're putting it. The Mishna is talking about where they would use the coals for sweating, and it's before the gezeria. And the chiddush of the Mishna is that you're not allowed to, right?
Gezeria and gezeria is for what?
Because they were
No,
because of bathing. They're bathing, right? That's what the Gemara was.
Also.
Yeah, but I don't know if Zayah is a refuah necessarily, right? Could be you're just doing it. You got to get shema.
Doesn't he bring it with massaging?
Could be because the gezeria here, we're not talking about the gezeria of refuah. The gezeria here that we're talking about is the gezeria that we're afraid that they might have used it in the bath. That they
we're not gozer zayah to washing.
We are. That's exactly what the gezeria was. That's exactly what the gezeria was. Yeah, this is Mishna's talking about before the gezeria.
No.
That's okay. Bye. What's the problem?
The only reason I was asking is because why do we fall off L'Maisran L'Elyron the Baybayoy to the bathhouses?
Right.
Because you can't heat up water to wash. So the answer is what? They gave it Lahaziyah the Kaidim Gezeira. Once you're saying it's Kaidim Gezeira, why is it L'Maisran L'Elyron? Why do you need Zeya anymore? Once you're saying it's Kaidim Gezeira, just said they gave it into the bathhouse.
Right, and you're not allowed to do that. And you're not allowed to do that.
Why did it keep Lahaziyah? Why did it keep Lahaziyah?
Why not? I mean, why not just say it was before the gezeira?
Yeah, once you say it's before the gezeira. Yeah.
I hear. Why don't you just what Gershon's asking? There was a 2-level gezeira. Right. First they asked her heating it up because really Ikra then you're allowed to heat up on Yom Tov. They made a gezeira because they were heating it up because of heating it up on Shabbos. They were heating it on Shabbos. I'm sorry, they were heating it before. I'm sorry, what did I say? Mikra din, you could go into hot showers, heat it up before Yom Tov. They were heating it up even on Yom Tov. And they were lying. So then they took that back. Then they said, but sweating is okay. And then they were scamming the system again. So then they took back. So that's a guy. Once you're saying it's before the gezeira, so go all the way back to the first gezeira. Okay, I hear your question. I don't know. Then weiter. You're not allowed to cut a wick into 2. Mishna besakin deloy. How come with a knife you're not allowed to cut a wick on Amud base now? There come a sakin mana because you're making it 1 wick into 2. That's like making a new kli. So, but if I take a fire and I split the wicks into 2 with a fire, that's not fixing a kli. So Tani Reb Chia chaytcha ba'ar b'pi shtei neiros. What you're doing is you're cutting with a flame when it's in 2 different candles. Meaning the wicks are there's 2 candles, one here, and then you have 1 wick going in between the 2. So then you light the wick, and then each candle gets lit, right? Because it doesn't look like, Rashi says, it doesn't look like you're making 2 wicks. Now it looks like you're lighting two different candles. It happens to be that you're splitting the wick. So then it's okay. So this is very interesting. You're allowed to cut down a wick on Yom Tov. My meichten, what does meichten mean? What you want to do is sometimes the wick stops burning well. So what you want to do is cut the black part that's on the top, and then you get a fresh wick, and then it lights better. So that you're allowed to do on Yom Tov, which is quite interesting.
You're allowed to cut?
The Mishna is saying that you're allowed to cut the wick down on Yom Tov. Yes. So, and that's the way we pass like this in Shulchan Aruch, except the Mishnah Brura says, this is what's the interesting part. Mishnah Brura says the minig nowadays became not to do this. He doesn't say why. As far as I remember, he doesn't say why. He just says the minig nowadays is not to do it.
What about
chalk it up to another chumrah of Bisman Hazeh?
What about kaitzer?
That's what no, it's not kaitzer because it's detached from the ground. You're thinking maybe mechatech, to cut it down to size, because you don't particularly care about the size. You're just cutting down the wick.
Yeah, but
mechatech is only like tearing toilet paper, which is maybe tomorrow's sugya, is only a problem because you want it to be a specific size. Here, the wick, you don't particularly care for it to be a specific size. You're just cutting it down.
Size of the toilet paper.
What?
Let's say I don't care about the size.
Stay tuned tomorrow.
That doesn't make a difference. It's ripped for that size that it's meant to be, whether you care or you don't care. It's not.
So here you're gonna cut it. It's gonna cut either
right,
way.
but you don't particularly care for the size. You just want to
cares
get rid
if
of.
You don't care, but it's gonna happen anyway.
No, but you don't care. It's not meant. You're not cutting it down for size. You're not cutting it down for size. Meaning by toilet paper, when it has the perforations, that's meant, although I don't know anybody who can use that size.
I'm ripping it apart. It's a malacha. I'm not allowed to do it. Well, why are you laughing?
No, you're allowed to. You're allowed to, when you're tearing something because you want a particular size, that's mechata. Stamp to tear is not mechata. Right? Yeah, it doesn't mean necessarily you could do it. I'll kilkel maybe. Yeah, but anyway, so it's yeah, so that's why it's I mean the question is, why is it not tikkun? You're saying it's mechatech, why? That's why is it not tikkun, right?
I go to sleep.
So that's
I'm fatigued work.
I'll mute him. Okay.
Mute.
I muted him. Anyways, so yeah, it's I found it interesting. The Gemara's passages like this and the Shulchan Aruch passages like this, but the Mishnah Brura says Lamaisa the minig nowadays not to do it. He doesn't say why. Is that maybe it's because what you're saying? Maybe I don't know. Fine. Tani Bakapara Vav Dvarim Nemar B'Psila. There's 3 halachos said. There's 6 halachos said by wicks. Gimel lahachmer v'gimel lahakol. 3 chumras and 3 kulas. Lahachmer ein goydel noisa. If you can't twist it, right? You can't make the wicks, right? For those in the old days that used to make the wicks from cotton for the menorah on Hanukkah, or for a barn, or nowadays even. But you take the wick and you roll it like this, right? So that you wouldn't be allowed to do that lechatchila on Shabbos on Yom Tov. Yeah. And you're not allowed to singe it. In the old days, also, this is something that's not supposed. In the old days, you're supposed to singe the wicks so that they light better later on, which they say is a mitzvah to do on Erev Shabbos, so that the lights. So when the woman lights candles, so it lights better. Then, which the Pais can say that Bisman Hazeh, our candles, there's no need to do it. Our candles light very well right away, right? And you're not allowed to cut it into 2 like our Mishna. Those are the 3 chumras. Lahakal, mamacha b'yad. You can press it together with your hands, right? Meaning it's too bounced out. So mamela, you're allowed to press it. B'shayr b'shemen, you're allowed to soak it in oil so that it burns better. B'chaytcha ba'ar b'pishtei neiros, and you're allowed to cut it with ar, like we said in the Mishnah with the 2 when it's in 2 neiros. B'amarav nasan barav, Amarav. Amarav, Amarav, I'm sorry, Amarav, not Nasan Barabba, Amarav. Asiri Bavel Yardi Gehenim Haim. The wealthy people of Bavel are going to go to Gehenim. Right? Kihot the Shabsai Bar Marinus, because Shabsai Bar Marinus, Iklu Bavel, he traveled to Bavel. You know, he asked them to help him out in business. They didn't give him any, they gave him no business. Mazaini, he asked them for food. They didn't feed him either. Omar, he said, Hani meir of Rav. These must be from the Arab Rav, right? The Arab Rav were the supposed Yidden, whenever they came as Gerim, but they were not. They were just doing it to get out of, what was the Arab Rav? They were doing it to get out of Mitzrayim. So, Tichsiv, V'nosan l'cha rachamim v'richamecha. Hashem will give you rachmanas and you'll have rachmanas. Kol ha'merachem ala brius, v'yadu shemizar shel Avram Avinu. If somebody has pity on his brius, on his creations, so then we know he's from the children of Avram Avinu. He's not from the kids of Avram Avinu. In Bavel,
I had one child. If a person doesn't do this, let's say a person is asked for tzedakah every day, 10 times a day, and he gives 3 times a day. The other 7 times is considered.
Zevi, stop calling that guy.
I'm not talking. I'm talking mitzvah the person was giving.
I know. I was just making a joke.
Yeah, I'm saying it's shver. That's a shver shaila. But here it sounds like
isn't the pshat? Is the pshat is that he doesn't? Is the person not considered meir shavram if he's consistently like this?
Yes. Yeah, if it's a guy that doesn't help out. I'm saying a guy calls you in the middle of the night and wakes you up out of bed. It's ask for tzedakah. You have to get out of bed and give it to him.
I understand, but if a person is asked 10 times a day and he's only giving 3-4 times, so maybe is he not?
He has to make the cheshbon. He has to make the cheshbon of exactly what's legitimate and what's not. What is a legitimate excuse and what's not.
They can all be legitimate. They can all be legitimate. It's what I'm saying.
Okay, maybe. I don't know. If it's not legitimate, then he's going to go to Gehenna. These guys are going to go to Gehenna. Now, it's interesting because what is not being from Zerah? What's the connection that they're going to Gehenna and not being from Zerah Avram?
Yeah, the Gehenna, it doesn't bring a riot for Gehenna. It only brings riot not from Zerah because he was not
Avram. Did we have the other Gemara? Doesn't Avram Avinu stand by a Pesach Shel Gehenna? Whoever had a bris milah, he doesn't let him in. He takes him to
right.
So he's there for what?
So he said, if he's there from Avram Avinu, then Avram Avinu will keep him from going to Gehenna.
Right, but the question is I'm saying if you don't give tzedakah, you're going to Gehenna, or you're just not getting mitzvahs? Meaning, is it a lav not to help him out, or you just didn't get a mitzvah? Okay, I guess la yuchal l'salim, right? So maybe, I don't know. Okay, whatever it is. Fine.
Somebody wanted to bring a raya.
Yeah.
This mice, right? They went to Ikul Bavel and they asked him to go into business. He didn't do it. And then they asked him for food and he didn't give it. If the guy's a consistent not giver, that's when a person. Why did the Gemara have to bring down? Why this case is that he didn't have food and in business? Maybe could be if he's consistently not giving.
Maybe. Okay, maybe it's consistent. You can't blame every time a guy asks for tzedakah that you have to give.
I get.
So you want to say it's consistent? Okay, I hear that.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Would that fall under you have to love your fellow like you love yourself?
That's for sure. That's part of it. 100%. That's part of it. It's also interesting that the highest level of tzedakah is to help somebody in business. That's what the Rambam says, right? Better to give a guy, set him up in a business than to give him tzedakah. So he first asked these Bavliim to do the top tzedakah, and then he asked for simple things, just give me a handout. They didn't do that either, right? Okay, and also it's interesting that he said he put together all the wealthy people in Bavel. I mean, and one guy did this, or maybe he went to the Gemach. Maybe that's a shot. It must have been that nobody in the community was willing to. He must have gone to multiple people. Yeah. Okay. Fine.
He asked from them. He doesn't say Ba'minei. In the Maisa, it says
he said
Ba'minei.
Asir, I guess. Yeah, I guess it has to be some plural, but it doesn't mean he went to everybody. I don't know.
It says that
maybe
it's going on the makam. Maybe it's going on the place, not necessarily on a single person. The whole makam didn't give, and therefore it was like a tonight. It was like a
so it must have been that he went to
place.
some sort of gemach or whatever, right? It must be he went to some sort of gemach.
Right.
It seems that they're Rob is the one that's calling them, telling them that they're all going to Gehenna, and the story is of Reb Shabsai saying that they're from the Erev Rob. It's Rob's interpretation of the Erev Rob and them not being Sarah Abraham, and he's the one that's interpreting that they're going to. Reb Shabsai never said they're going to Gehenna.
I mean, okay, that's interesting. That's a good point, Taka, right? It's Rob saying based on the Maisa that he heard from what was his name?
Nathan Bar Abba.
Right, the Rasul Abba said it in the name of Rav, who was saying it from a story of Shabbos Bar Merimis. I hear. That's a good point. Right, so they're just saying it must be. So then he must have had some sort of connection that they're not Zerah Shal Avram, and then they're going to Gehenna. Okay.
So it's just as Satmar Rebbe could say his joke on this Gemara. That's mamish from his joke, the Yoel's joke. When the guy asked him for money, he said, "I've been an article from Avram Avini." So he says, "From Velchen Vab."
Right, right. Very good. So it could be Taka. Right. Whoever's looking towards other people's tables, meaning he has the shnara, he has a dark world around him. Shenemar, it says, he's running around looking for bread, where it is. So he knows that there's going to be a dark day from him. Yeah, he doesn't even have a life. He has no life. Yeah, because he's running around looking for handouts. Fine. So Tanabana, Gimel Chaye, and this actually has to do with this next one has to do with today's Pasha.
Can I be that guy for a second?
Yeah.
How does this clear up with the people that play like the Section 8 games and the wicks games? It's like one thing to whatever, and I'm not saying it as a joke. I'm actually like, there's people that need it, and there's people that play the games, and like, it's hard to distinguish sometimes whether like you should be mechaber like these people or not.
That's not, you think it's a fun feeling. All I'm saying is that it's not a good feeling to have to go schnorr from people.
Yeah, but like
right?
we see this in the Gemara, very common Gemara, right? And it's a lot of people are still in the Daf Yomi, so people are still hanging on. So a lot of people theoretically seeing this particular Gemara, and we still
I don't know what there is going on there, but
like, what do we do? Like, how do we like look at this and then like look at in that situation? I don't know. It's a couple question in the middle of Daf Yomi. I'm sorry, but like I'm
right. No, it's fine. It's fine. Okay, so it's not meaning it's not saying that it's a good thing. It's saying it's a bad thing. It's not good to go take handouts. That's exactly what it's saying. That it's schnorring.
So then how do we approach it then? Meaning like,
but if you need it, you need it. You got to do it. You got to do it. It's not a life. It's not a life. You'd much rather be wealthy, right? But I mean, listen. I'm sitting outside a house now that has a full court basketball court going on in the back right now that just started in the guy's yard. And I mean, so be nice, but you got to do what you got to. It's you can't. Yeah. Okay. So then let's see. Okay. So Tanur Rabbanan. Yes. The Tanur Rabbanan. This is mamash has to do with today's parsha. Gimel Chayein and Einam Chayim. There's three people whose lives are not lives. Ve'elohein. Amatzapa l'shul Somebody has to look to the table of his friend. And if your wife rules over you, right? What was the curse after the Eitz Hadas? Is the man rules over the wife, right? So if the wife is ruling over you, then you have no life, right? So that's mamish today's parsha, at least from the male's perspective. Right?
What you talking about over there?
Yeah, but you know good and well. Anyway, so Misha, right? The Misha Yisurin, Yisurin Moishlin Begufay, and somebody who has unfortunately Yisurin, right? Some say only if you have only one shirt, then that's also considered no life. Okay, for Tanakama,
someone who has Yisurim, someone who has Yisurim, or someone who allows them to rule over him.
What? Yeah, I guess that's a good point.
You want to
say a vart. You want to say a vart that it doesn't mean somebody who has Yisurim. Listen, you can be an authority on this. You know what I mean?
It's Moshlim Begufo. His body has pain.
My body has pain. I'm in constant pain. I don't let them rule over me.
Yeah, because you don't look at it like it's Yisurin, because you're a Hecher Mensch. Maybe maybe we're saying the same vart. Maybe we're saying the same vart, Taka. Right? If it's Yisurin, it's being Moshel on you. If it's not being Moshel, it's not Yisurin. Okay, it's the same. Okay, I hear that. And then the next one says the Yesham even somebody only has one shirt. That doesn't have a Tanakama, so Tanakama doesn't hold of that. Meaning he added, Yesham adds that even somebody has on one shirt is no life. That means that the first sheet to hold that you do have a life. The Tanakama, Efsha Demayin B'Maneh. That's all. I'm sorry. So the reason why having only one shirt means it's going to get full of lice because you can't wash it, right? How do you ever wash it? So he says that. So the Tanakama, the reason why the Tanakama didn't put it like that is because no, you could check the clothing and remove the lice, take out the lice, and then you have no problem. Yeah. Okay. So Zok the Mishna. Yeah. Ein shayvrin es acheres. You're not allowed to break cheres. This is for all the barbecuers out there. Yeah, tonight's a barbecue night. I should have said that before, but right. So ein shayvrin es acheres, right? You're not allowed to break earthenware. Ein chaytchen haniyar, and you can't cut with the bolt. On anymore. Ein chaytchen haniyar. Oh, so this is the chatik. This is what you were talking about before. Yeah, ein chaytchen haniyar, and you're not allowed to cut paper, right? Here you're not allowed to cut it because you want it to be a certain size. Lithlis by maliach in order to roast salted fish. Why is this? Because if you salt fish, I thought all these wood planks for the fish is a mishagas, right? But I'm learning from this Mishna, my barbecuing skills, that you cannot put fish straight on a grill. Otherwise, it sticks to the grill and it becomes a mess. So you need to put it onto either cheres or onto paper, like a special paper or whatever it is. So you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to break the cheres in order to do this.
It makes salt blocks.
That's the parchment paper. You have to remember to bring on the shopping list before Yom Tov. And you forget, you have to go back to the store.
100%. Then they ask me, does parchment paper need a hefsher before Pesach? Does it need a hefsher? Does it not need a hefsher? Yeah, get all the pictures of the parchment paper from Costco.
They make blocks of salt where you put the fish right onto the salt and then put the salt on the barbecue.
Is that so? That I haven't seen. I hear.
I thought cedar,
right? Whatever. That's what they use nowadays. Cedar, cheres, whatever. But pizza stone, is that what pizza stone comes from? I don't know. That's a different thing. Okay, but either way, you're not allowed to cut the cheres and you're not allowed to roast it. Yeah. Vein garfin taner v'kiraim, and you're not allowed to shovel out all the ashes from an oven, on types of ovens. Al machavshin, but you're allowed to push it down. Vein makifin shtei chaviyos. Now you're not allowed to. Literally means you're not allowed to surround two barrels. Right? This was the last gezeria to put a pot on it, which that means is that you take two barrels, right? And then you don't have a tripod. Normally you cook on a tripod. A tripod is what the Gemara always calls it. Rashi has a tripod, he calls it. But which is there's a better word we use nowadays for it. No, not a tripod. Well, you cook on in a fire. You put it on. Okay, whatever it is. If it broke, so what are you going to do? Is you use two barrels, and you put the pot on top of the two barrels. So you're not allowed to do that. And you're not allowed to lean the pot.
Talking about like a rotisserie, right? That's what you're thinking about.
Not a rotisserie. No. You're making a fire in between two barrels, and then you're gonna put the pot down on top of it, on top of the fire. All right. And then it says, and you can't support a pot with a piece of wood. And the same thing with a door, right, which we'll see in the Gemara exactly what that means with the door. And you're not allowed to use a stick in order to make an animal move. Right? And the reason for that is muksa, because the wood is meant to be burned, but you can't use it to smack an animal. Rabbi Elazar Shimon says it's. One second. Rabbi Elazar Shimon says it's mutter. Yeah, what are you saying?
What about if it's miyuchad to move the animal?
If it's miyuchad to move the animal, then it's going to be okay, right? But we're going to have to see.
So I can keep my whacking stick in my sukkah. That's for cats when they come in.
I guess, Jesse, you could do that. Yeah.
It doesn't look like uvda the.
Okay, so then maybe get a special one for Yom Tov. No.
Oh.
But right now we're thinking that it means the way Rashi understands the Mishna, that's a muksa issue, not anything else. Okay, so Zogdimar, my timer. Right, how come? Yeah.
You mentioned that Rashi usually says tripod. For all the grillers out there, Rashi here does say griddle. The first Rashi on the
that's true. Yeah, Rashi does. He says both actually. He says tripod later, and he says
the last one. He says tripod.
Yeah, he says. Yeah, he does say griddle. Yeah, that's a good point, Taka. Yeah. So the Gemara says, my time. Why can't you break the earthenware or the paper and cut it? Because you're making a utensil, and you're not allowed to do that on Yom Tov, even though we said already that's a machlokes, which you're going to see, that's a machlokes whether you're allowed to make utensils for food purposes on Yom Tov. You're not allowed to shovel out from the ashes. But if your oven is not usable because it has so many ashes in it, then you're allowed to scoop it out. And then it's mutter. That's mutter. The Rav Chia's wife, a half a brick, fell from the wall of the oven into her oven on Yom Tov. I want good bread. So since he wanted good bread, he's basically telling her you can take the rock out of the oven because I want good bread, and that's considered a tzarech for Yom Tov, for cooking.
To fix the oven, or just to move it out of the way?
No, just to move the brick out. I don't think it means that she's putting the brick back into the wall. I don't know if that would be allowed. I think it just
maybe the heat escapes from the oven without the brick there.
I hear. I thought just to remove the brick. I hear. Maybe it means to fix it. Maybe.
Doesn't it mean if it takes out the brick, then the bread will bake better, and therefore the shoes are mutter a lot of movable. It's tzarech, no?
Yeah, No, what Avi's saying is that maybe why would that make it any better or worse? If anything, we saw before that the fuller the oven is, the better the bread bakes, right? So maybe the heat escapes through that brick, and you're putting it back. I don't know. Okay, so I'm gonna lay Rabbi Lashami another story.
Sounds like they're talking about like a tanor versus like an oven, like something similar to what we have, but something like an open from the top. Then, where like that's where you have to, I was reading about the roasting a goose, and the notes said that the opening on the top and they were suspended. All this stuff sounds like it's coming from the top. Then, meaning like. They don't have something coming from the side, and it's
that's called a tandoori oven. Yeah, they put it on a skewer and they shove it.
Yeah. Okay, maybe. Okay, so let's see. He said to roast me a bar avza, a goose. Is dar micharucha. Be careful from burning it. Don't burn it, right? So Rashi says what he meant is to take out all the coals out of the oven so you don't end up burning it. So I'm sorry, what did I just say? Yeah, so back up, I'm sorry. Rav Acha said, Demar Sharkin le Tanura b'yoyma tova. From Mar, meaning Rav Ashi, should not remove, put like what you were saying, Avi, put mud or dirt or cement or lime, whatever it is, over the tanner on Yom Tov, so that it'll seal it, it'll insulate it, and then that would make the food cook better. So what do you see from that? Right? Because that's braysa, that's malacha, right? Isn't that malacha to put the mud on there? He said, "Anan arkasa de parasamchina." We're getting it from the shores of the Pras. That's also today's parsha. The Nahar Pras, the river, the Euphrates River, where it's what do you call it? It's already like pre-done. So they don't have to make the mud. It's the mud from there is a special mud, and then it's fine. That's only when you means literally means when you drew it from yesterday, meaning you showed which mud you're going to take from before Yom Tov. Like this is not muksa. If you didn't, you can't go there because then it's going to be muksa. Then Amar Avinu v'kitva shari, but and with ashes, if you want to seal the oven so that the heat stays in with ashes, that's going to be mutter, right? Which Rashi says, and the reason is because you mix ashes with water, that's not making anything great. Fine. Ve'ein makifin. Let's go a little back. Ve'ein makifin shtei chaviyos, and you can't put two barrels together and put a fire under it. So Amar Rav Nachman avonim shel beis hakisei mutter l'tzad than b'yom tov. You can do this with stones of a bathroom, meaning if you need to make yourself a makeshift toilet, so you take two stones, put them right next to each other, and the person will sit down on top of the stones. Yeah. So Eisvei is going to ask Rabbi Eisvei, Rabbi Nachman, we said you're not allowed to do this for pots, meaning you can't take two barrels and put it here and then put a pot on top of it. So why are you allowed to do it for a bathroom? No, there you're making an oil. When you put the pot down on top of these two barrels, you're making an oil. By the bathroom, you're not making an oil because a person he's going to be standing up. So eventually, meir, that's not considered oil. Yeah.
Wait, why? It's because the person will stand up. He's going to take the pot off eventually too.
No, but a person,
can't make an oil.
A person is not an oil. A person is not an oil. I'm understanding it because a person can't sit there all day. A pot, theoretically, you can leave it there forever. Okay, but maybe
I'm not so sure about that, Sviakov.
No,
we can put a dead body on top of two barrels and now make an oil too, right?
Yeah, we go.
Only if there's no bread
or babies.
Yeah, I hear that. So then, if you build itztava like a bench on Yom Tov, and you're not making an oil, that's also going to be mutter, right? Meaning all of a sudden building that doesn't make an oil, meaning let's say you make it out of cement and bricks and all that. So you're allowed to do that. No, that's a set building. You're building a bench, it's going to stay forever, at least for a long time. But a temporary building, the Torah didn't ask it. Because of Rabbanon, and the Rabbanon don't allow a temporary structure to be built because of a permanent one. As we know, covered abrius is no gezeria. So since the person needs it for the bathroom, so that's covered abrius, and therefore it's not a problem. Some Rabbi Yehuda, also. So if you want to build a fire, so meaning you shouldn't pile up you're building like a square fire. So you don't start from the bottom up, you start from the top down. Meaning we have this in Shabbos too. When you're building, you're supposed to build from the top down because that's like with a shinui, right? So if you build from the bottom up, so then that's looks like building. Yeah, so on Tamid Aleph, v'chein be the same thing with eggs, right? Basically, what you want to do is when you're making eggs, doesn't mean you're doing. You're not making a pile of eggs. What you're doing is you're putting eggs into a pot, right? So before, what you want to do is you want to put the eggs into the pot, right? Meaning, don't put the pot onto the coals and then the egg into the pot. Put the egg into the pot, right? And then put it down. Yeah. That's basically what that's what you do. V'chein gezeria, and same thing with a pot, right? Meaning, if you're going to use a pot on top of, you're going to do this thing, you're going to put a pot on top of two barrels. So put the pot there first, then put the barrels under it. V'chein puri is same thing with a bed. V'chein chavis is same thing with barrels. V'chein tzimchen is the gezeria. Yeah, so that's it. So v'chein chavis, and that's meaning whenever you're going to try and make an oil. Right, we learned this in Shabbos. When you have to make an oil, you put the top first, and then you put the walls. Yeah. Now I don't know why there's no two dots here, but let's just read it. Anyway, it's still the two dots. But this is a new sugya. You're not allowed to lean a pot on wood. And it says and also on a door. Right? You're taking a door and you're putting a pot on top of a door. Why would you put a pot on top of a door? So it's the opposite. You can't use a door, you can't wedge a piece of wood in order to hold up a door. That's what the Mishna means. Right? And that's also because you can only use wood for burning and you can't use wood for any other use. All right. Okay. Good talk, everybody. Sorry I started a little late.
Thank you.
Reb Aaron.
Hey, T.Y., you going back to New York today?
Can you repeat the punchline in Yiddish?
Oh,
and
yeah,
translate
call me
in
back
English?
now.
I didn't understand what you said. You're still muted. You're muted. You're
Rabar,
muted.
you're muted.
So he said, "Give me stock. I'm an anicle from Avram Avinu." The Rebbe said, "From which wife?"
There you go. Right. Yeah. Then you also have the Samar Rebbe one, right? He said, what did he say? He didn't give him. He says, I'm going to give you somebody said he's going to yoil. What was it?
Oh, that was somebody got an aliyah inside. The stranger got an aliyah. So after the aliyah, he schnodded $51. Then when he came over to the Rebbe to give a shekoyach, he told the Rebbe, I schnodded $51 because of your name, Yoel. He says, here in Satmar, they call me Yoelish.
Very good. Yeah. All right. Fine. A good walk, everybody.
Good to go. Thank you.